Teo stepped out of the ship and into the Galactic Assembly Station. His heart was beating fast. Around him everything was enormous and strange. The ceiling stretched up so high that it disappeared into mist. The floors were made of a material that felt neither hot nor cold, and they glowed with a soft blue light. Teo was a human from Earth. He was sent here to speak for his planet. His mission was simple in words but difficult in reality. Convince the most powerful beings in the galaxy that humans were worth listening to. He walked through the corridor toward the Grand Council chamber. Other beings passed him, and most of them did not seem to notice him at all. Teo was small compared to them. A Vryn walked past him and its crystal body caught the light. It was 12 feet tall, maybe taller. Its 4 arms moved in a way that seemed wrong to Teo, but beautiful too. The Vryn looked down at him and made a sound like breaking glass. It was laughing. Teo kept walking. Minsu was waiting for him in the observation room. Minsu was Earth's military chief, a strong man with serious eyes. He had come to watch the council meeting from behind special glass where observers sat. When Teo entered, Minsu stood up and put a hand on his shoulder. "They are already talking about us," Minsu said quietly. "They do not think we can hear them from here, but I can see their mouths moving." "They are laughing," Teo nodded. He had expected this. The humans on Earth had prepared for disrespect. But preparation and actually experiencing it were two different things. The Grand Council chamber was the largest room Teo had ever seen. 12 beings sat in tall chairs arranged in a circle. Each one was powerful in their own way. The Vryn representative had the largest chair. Next to it sat Commander Vexcath, a Korthak with a body like an enormous insect. His skin was dark red and his many eyes looked at everything at once. Then there was Nari. She was different from the others. Nari was an Etherian, and she had skin that changed colors like water reflecting light. She was beautiful in a way that made Teo look twice. But more than that, she was watching everyone, listening to everything. While the other council members laughed at crude jokes, Nari sat still and quiet. "The humans wish to join the Concordat," the Vryn representative said. His voice was deep and echoed in the chamber. "This is interesting. They are soft," a large golden being said. This was a Solarian. "Our weapons could destroy an entire human city in one moment." "They are short-lived," another voice added. Teo could not see which being had spoken. "They live perhaps 80 years? How can we trust a species that is here one moment and gone the next?" The Korthak Commander Vexcath made a noise that sounded like air escaping from a tire. Teo realized this was Korthak laughter. "The small soft ones," Vexcath said. "They call themselves the masters of their planet. But they have not even reached the nearest star. They are not ready. They are not worthy." Teo felt anger rise in his chest, but he controlled it. He had been trained for this. He took a deep breath and stepped forward into the council chamber. The room became quiet. All the eyes in the room turned toward him. Some beings had 3 eyes, some had 5, some had 10. All of them looked at Teo as if he were an insect they had just noticed on the floor. "I am Teo," he said. His voice was small in the huge room, but he spoke clearly. "I come from Earth. I come to ask for a chance." The Vryn representative leaned forward. "A chance for what?" "A chance to prove that humans are worthy of being part of the Galactic Concordat," Teo said. "We may be small. We may live shorter lives than many of you, but we are strong in different ways. We are creative. We are fast learners. We do not give up easily." "Pretty words," Commander Vexcath said, "but words mean nothing. Can you fight? Can your small weapons compare to ours?" Teo did not answer right away. He looked at each council member and then he looked at Nari. Something in her expression told him to speak the truth, not what they wanted to hear. "No," Teo said. "Our weapons cannot compare to yours. Not today. Not in simple power. But we have something you may not have. We have creativity. We have the ability to solve problems in ways you have not thought of. We have the hunger to grow." The council chamber filled with laughter. It was not kind laughter. It was the laughter of beings who thought they were listening to a child tell a joke. "The council votes," the Vryn representative said. "Shall we allow Earth to join the Galactic Concordat as full members?" All around the circle, hands or limbs or energy forms went up, but they went down just as quickly. "Every single one, no," the Vryn said. "But we will place Earth on probationary status. You may return in 100 rotations. If your species has advanced enough by then, we may consider your request again." Teo felt the word like a physical blow. 100 rotations. That was almost 300 Earth years. The Council was saying that humanity was so far behind that it would take centuries to catch up. They were not even saying no permanently. They were saying that humanity was not worth a real answer. Teo bowed and turned to leave. As he walked out of the chamber, he heard more laughter behind him. The Vryn were already moving on to the next topic, already forgetting about the small humans. That night, Teo sat in his small room in the station. Through the window, he could see the vast darkness of space. Somewhere out there was Earth, so small and far away that you could not see it without special instruments. He recorded a message to send back home. He spoke slowly and carefully. "The Council does not see us as a threat," he said to the camera. "They see us as insignificant. They have given us 300 years to prove ourselves, but I do not think we will wait 300 years. I think we will show them what humans can do much sooner than that. They do not understand us yet, but they will. Soon they will have no choice but to understand." Outside the station in the vast darkness of space, something ancient and powerful moved through the cosmic shadows. The Supreme Hunter was always watching, always listening. The Hunter had heard the laughter in the council chamber, and the Hunter had noted the name: humans, Terrans. The Supreme Hunter had not spoken in 1,000 years, but something about the small species had caught the attention of this ancient being. Perhaps it was the way they did not surrender. Perhaps it was something else entirely. But the Supreme Hunter turned its massive head toward the direction of Earth and waited. Something was about to change in the galaxy. The Supreme Hunter could feel it. And for the first time in a very long time, the Hunter was interested. Minsu stood on the bridge of the human ship called the Falcon. Around him, 20 other human ships floated in formation. They were small compared to the massive alien vessels that sometimes passed through this region of space. But they were fast. They were clever. And they were ready. The mission was dangerous. Teo had returned to Earth with a plan. The Council had rejected humanity with barely a second thought. But there was a way to change their minds. Humanity had to do something important, something that no one else could do. And Minsu knew exactly where that opportunity was. The Crimson Nebula lay ahead. It was a region of space filled with clouds of red dust and gas. Inside, ancient structures floated in the darkness. Some said these structures were millions of years old. Some said they held secrets and power beyond imagination. The Galactic Council wanted to explore them, but they were afraid to go in. Too many ships had disappeared in those clouds. "Sensors show movement," Jiwoo said from her station. Jiwoo was the Falcon sensor officer. She was young, but her eyes were sharp and her mind was sharper. "Something large is entering the nebula from the west side." Minsu leaned forward. "Can you identify it?" "Korthak signatures," Jiwoo said. "Commander Vexkath's personal fleet. They have 5 battleships and at least 30 smaller vessels." Minsu closed his eyes for a moment. The Korthak were not supposed to be here. This sector was supposed to be neutral, but Commander Vexkath had never followed rules before. The ambitious Korthak general had always done what he wanted when he wanted to do it. "Tell all ships to move to yellow alert," Minsu ordered. "Weapons powered down but ready to go active. And send a message to Junho in the science station. Tell him to monitor the nebula. If anything changes, I want to know immediately." Junho was Earth's best strategist. He was older than Minsu, with gray starting to show in his hair. But his mind worked like a computer. He could see patterns that others missed. He could predict what would happen 3 steps into the future. The human ships moved quietly into the Crimson Nebula. Around them, red dust clouds moved and shifted. Ancient structures appeared out of the mist like the bones of dead giants. Some of the structures were the size of mountains. Some were the size of cities. "Vexkath is beginning extraction." Junho's voice came through the communication system. "His ships are using some kind of energy weapon on the crystalline structures. They are removing them from the nebula." Minsu felt cold in his chest. He understood immediately. "They do not know what they are doing," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" Jiwoo asked. "These structures," Minsu said, "they are not just ancient. They are holding something together. I can feel it. The whole nebula is in balance. If they keep removing the structures, the balance will break." Junho's voice came through again, and now it was urgent. "Minsu, the gravitational readings are changing. The nebula's core is becoming unstable. If this continues, the gravitational pull will intensify. We could see a formation of a mini black hole within hours. Minsu made a decision. Send a warning to Vexcath. Tell him to stop the extraction immediately. Tell him the nebula will become unstable. The Korthak commander's response came back quickly. His voice was filled with mockery and anger. This is none of your concern, human. Leave this sector now, or I will add your ships to my collection of trophies. Minsu did not respond. He did not have time for words. He only had time for action. All ships move to intercept position, he ordered. But do not attack. Just position yourselves between the Korthak and the crystalline structures. The human ships moved like water flowing around rocks. They were small and fast. In moments, they had formed a barrier between the Korthak extraction ships and the ancient structures. You dare? Vexcath's voice boomed across the communication system. I will destroy you. The Korthak battleships began to move toward the human vessels. Weapons charged, shields activated. This was going to be a massacre. 30 ships against 20 human ships. The humans did not have a chance. But then something happened that had not been predicted by any computer or strategist. The darkness itself seemed to open up. A massive shape emerged from the void between the stars. At first, Minsu could not understand what he was seeing. It was too large. It was too terrible. And it was too perfect. The Supreme Hunter stepped into the light of the Crimson Nebula. The being was 30 feet tall, maybe taller. Its body was covered in fur as black as the space between stars. It had 4 arms, each one ending in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through reality itself. But it was the eyes that froze every being in the sector. The eyes burned like supernovae, ancient, hungry, and absolutely completely aware. The Supreme Hunter did not speak. It did not need to. It simply moved. A Korthak battleship, the largest one, tried to escape. The Supreme Hunter reached out one massive claw and touched it. Just touched it. The entire ship shattered like glass, exploding into 1,000 pieces. The Korthak inside had not even had time to scream. Another battleship fired its weapons. The energy blast struck the Supreme Hunter like rain. They did not even slow him down. The Hunter moved through the Korthak fleet like a predator moving through prey. Each movement was precise. Each action was deadly. Within moments, the entire Korthak fleet was destroyed. Commander Vexcath's voice came through one last time, high and full of panic. No, this is not possible. The Supreme Hunter is not real. It is just a legend. Then there was only silence. The Korthak were gone. All of them. The Supreme Hunter turned slowly. Its massive head rotated until those burning eyes were looking directly at the human ships. Minsu felt his entire body go cold. This was it. This was the end. The humans had gotten in the way of the Supreme Hunter, and now they would be destroyed too. The Supreme Hunter raised one massive claw. Minsu closed his eyes and thought about Earth. He thought about his family. He thought about Teo and all the humans who had believed that humanity could be something more. But the claw did not attack. Instead, the Supreme Hunter simply nodded. It was a small gesture, barely noticeable. But it was clear. The ancient being rose higher into space, its black fur blending with the darkness around it. And then it was gone. Just like that. Vanished into the cosmic shadows as if it had never been there at all. Only the wreckage of the Korthak fleet remained, drifting through the Crimson Nebula like the scattered bones of ancient creatures. Did that really happen? Jiwoo's voice was very quiet. Minsu took a breath. He looked at the space where the Supreme Hunter had been standing. He looked at the destroyed Korthak ships. And then he understood. The galaxy had just changed. Everything had changed. A single message came through on the communication system. The voice was unlike anything any human had ever heard. It was deep and ancient, and it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You did not flee. You did not fight without purpose. Interesting. Then that voice was gone too, leaving only silence and the knowledge that humanity had just been noticed by something far greater than itself. Something that had been waiting for a very, very long time. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light could travel. On 1,000 worlds, beings heard the story and could not believe it. The Supreme Hunter was real. The ancient legend was not just a myth told to frighten children. And somehow, impossibly, a small human fleet had survived an encounter with this cosmic predator. More than survived. The Supreme Hunter had acknowledged them. On the Galactic Assembly Station, the council members sat in shock. The Vryn representative was the first to speak, and his voice was different now. The mocking tone was gone, replaced by something that sounded like fear. "This changes everything," the Vryn said. "If the humans have earned the attention of the Supreme Hunter, then they are not insignificant. They are not soft or weak. They are dangerous." Commander Vexcath's empty chair sat silent in the chamber. He was gone now, along with most of his fleet. The remaining Korthak were in confusion and panic. Their general was dead. The Galactic Council had lost its strongest military voice. Nari, the Etherian council member, spoke up. Her voice was calm, but there was power in every word. "The humans did not attack the Korthak," she said. "The humans did not steal and they did not conquer. The Supreme Hunter destroyed the Korthak because they were causing danger to the Crimson Nebula. The humans understood this. They protected the balance. They acted with wisdom. They acted with luck," another council member said. But even as the words came out, everyone knew it was not true. It was not luck. It was something else. "I propose," Nari continued, "that we immediately grant Earth full membership status in the Galactic Concordat. To do less would be an insult to those who have earned the approval of the Supreme Hunter." The vote was different this time. Instead of all hands going down, most of them went up. Earth was no longer on probation. Earth was now a full member of the Galactic Concordat. On Earth, Tayo received the news in his office in the capital city. He felt tears come to his eyes, but he did not let them fall. Instead, he thought about what this meant. This was just the beginning. Dr. Haywan sat in her laboratory deep beneath the surface of Earth. She was a scientist, and she had always wanted to understand how things worked. Now she had a new project. She wanted to understand the Supreme Hunter. She pulled up every piece of information that had ever been recorded about the ancient being. Most of it was legend and story. But there were a few solid pieces of data. Ancient records from civilizations that had studied the Supreme Hunter thousands of years. Goheiwan began to compare the Supreme Hunter's DNA with what she knew about human DNA. The results shocked her so much that she had to sit down. There were similarities. Not many, not obvious, but they were there, buried deep in the genetic code. She recorded a message to Teo and sent it through secure channels. When Teo watched the message, his face went pale. "The Supreme Hunter species," Haiwan said in the recording, "seems to have shared a common ancestor with humanity, or at least with humanity's predatory past. I cannot explain exactly how or why. The genetic links are too old and too much has changed, but the markers are unmistakable. Teo, the Supreme Hunter did not recognize us as insignificant prey. The Supreme Hunter recognized us as something closer to family. Minsu was brought back to Earth as a hero. Everywhere he went, people wanted to touch him or speak to him. But Minsu did not feel like a hero. He felt like he had been given a responsibility too large to hold. Teo and Minsu met privately in a secure room. No cameras, no recordings, just the two of them and the weight of what they now knew. "What do we do?" Minsu asked. "How do we honor what the Supreme Hunter has done for us?" "We become worthy of his recognition," Teo said. "We do not hide it. We do not forget it. We use it to change ourselves into something better." "And if we cannot?" Minsu asked. "What if we fail?" Teo did not answer for a long time. Then he said, "Then the universe will know that the Supreme Hunter's judgment was wrong. And I do not think that is possible. I do not think the Supreme Hunter makes mistakes." On the Galactic Assembly Station, Nari received special permission to visit Earth. She came to meet with Teo face to face. When she entered his office, Teo stood up, not knowing quite how to greet an Etherian. Nari smiled. Her skin shifted through colors like a rainbow. "You are wondering why I helped you," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Teo said. "Why did you speak for us when the others wanted to mock us?" "Because I have studied history," Nari said. "I have studied the few species that have been acknowledged by the Supreme Hunter. They all share something in common. They have a hunger to grow. They have a need to understand the universe, and they are willing to work together to achieve great things. I saw those qualities in you when you stood before the council. I saw them when you refused to attack the Korthak even though you could have." "We could not have won," Teo said honestly. "Exactly," Nari said. "That is why it was significant. You chose the right path even when you were afraid, even when you were weak. That is the quality that draws the attention of the Supreme Hunter. That is the quality that makes a species worthy." "What happens now?" Teo asked. Now that we are acknowledged, now that we are part of the Concordat, now you build, Nari said. You learn. You grow stronger. You share your knowledge with other species and you accept their knowledge. You become something greater than you were before. Every species that has been acknowledged by the Supreme Hunter has done this, and every one of them has flourished. And the Supreme Hunter? Teo asked. Will we ever see him again? Nari's colors shifted to something sadder, something like purple and blue. The Supreme Hunter watches, she said. The Supreme Hunter is always watching, but he only appears when the balance of the universe is threatened, or when a species he has deemed worthy needs guidance. I suspect we will see him again, but I hope it will be a long time from now, because if the Supreme Hunter must appear again, it will mean that either something is very wrong or something very important is about to happen. Teo looked out the window of his office at the stars. Somewhere out there was the Supreme Hunter, moving through the cosmic shadows, waiting and watching. The ancient being was no longer just a legend told to frighten children. The Supreme Hunter was real. The Supreme Hunter was interested in humanity, and everything humanity had ever known was about to change. Teo stood in a chamber that should not exist. The walls around him seemed to shift between different states. Sometimes they were solid, sometimes they were transparent, and he could see the vast emptiness of space beyond. Sometimes they were not there at all, and he could see directly into the cosmic void. Minsu stood beside him, his hand on the grip of a weapon he knew would be useless here. Jiwoo was there too, her eyes moving back and forth as she tried to understand the physics of the space they were in, and Junho stood quietly, his analytical mind trying to break down what he was seeing into pieces that made sense. They had received a summons in the form of a crystalline structure that resonated with a frequency only humans could hear. The summons was from the Supreme Hunter, and when the Supreme Hunter called, there was only one thing to do. You answered. The chamber was empty except for them. No guards, no weapons. Just 4 humans standing in a space that defied the laws of physics. And then the Supreme Hunter was there. Teo had seen recordings of the Supreme Hunter. He had heard descriptions, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of standing in the presence of this ancient being. The Supreme Hunter's shadow filled the entire chamber, even though there was no sun to cast the shadow. The being's presence was so powerful that it pressed against Teo's mind like a physical force. The Supreme Hunter did not have a mouth that moved, but somehow his words entered the minds of every human in the chamber. The communication was direct. There was no translator needed. The Supreme Hunter's thoughts simply appeared in their brains. Your species hungers, the Supreme Hunter said. I feel it in the way you carry yourselves. I see it in the way you reach for the stars. This hunger I recognize. It reminds me of my own kind long ago before we transcended the physical form. We are honored, Teo began, but the Supreme Hunter's presence grew larger, and Teo's words died in his throat. I did not call you here for conversation, the Supreme Hunter said. I called you here to offer you a choice. The galaxy stands on the edge of war. 3 confederacies clash for control of a sector that affects the stability of the entire Concordat. The Council cannot decide how to act. They are afraid of the cost. They are paralyzed by fear. The Supreme Hunter moved closer and his eyes burned brighter. Teo felt like the ancient being could see directly into his soul. I am offering you the chance to solve this problem, the Supreme Hunter said. But you must do it your way. Not the way of force and conquest. Not the way of the strong crushing the weak. You must do it the way that only your species can. You must use the creativity and adaptability that makes humans unique. You must show the galaxy why humanity is worthy of the recognition I have given you. And if we fail? Minsu asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Then you will have failed, the Supreme Hunter said simply, and I will understand. No species that I have ever recognized has asked for a second chance. The Supreme Hunter raised one massive claw and touched the crystalline structure that hung in the center of the chamber. Knowledge poured into the minds of all 4 humans. Knowledge of technologies they had never seen before. Knowledge of ancient languages. Knowledge of secret pathways through space and time. Knowledge of how to see patterns in things that seemed random. When the knowledge stopped flowing, Teo felt like his brain was going to explode. But he held it all. They all held it. Somehow human minds that should not have been able to process this much information were able to do so. Go now, the Supreme Hunter said. The knowledge I have given you is enough. What you do with it will determine your species' fate, and perhaps it will determine the fate of the galaxy as well. The humans found themselves back on their ship. Before they had even taken a step, they were standing on the bridge of the Falcon, exactly where they had been before. But hours had passed, or had it? Time worked strangely in the presence of the Supreme Hunter. "What do we do?" Jiwoo asked, her voice shaking. Teo closed his eyes and felt the knowledge settling in his mind. And he understood what had to be done. "We go to the Void's Edge," he said. "We go to where the three confederacies are fighting, and we show them what humans can do." The journey to the Void's Edge took 3 days. When they arrived, they found a sector that was tearing itself apart. 3 different alien governments had fleets engaged in combat. Ships were exploding. Space stations were being destroyed. Millions of beings were dying, and more were dying every moment. Minsu wanted to attack. "We can stop this," he said. "Our weapons combined with the knowledge the Supreme Hunter gave us." "No," Teo said. "That is not the way. The Supreme Hunter said we must do this our way. Force is the way of others. Our way is different." Tayo sent out messages in languages he had never learned but now understood completely. He sent them on frequencies that should not have worked but now worked perfectly. In each message he was the same. He was not demanding. He was not threatening. He was offering something better. He was offering a solution. Within hours, representatives from all 3 confederacies agreed to listen. Not because they were afraid. Not because they thought the humans were powerful. But because Teo's words had made something clear. Fighting was destroying all of them. Fighting was making all of them weaker. Together they could become something stronger. Junho worked with the military strategists from each confederacy. He showed them patterns they had never seen before. Ways that resources could be shared. Ways that territorial disputes could be resolved. Ways that all 3 could benefit instead of all 3 being destroyed. Jiwoo used the knowledge from the Supreme Hunter to show how ancient sites in the contested sector could be protected and studied by all 3 confederacies together. Knowledge sharing, scientific cooperation. The things that drove most of the conflict simply evaporated. Minsu worked as a neutral party to oversee the diplomatic process. His military experience helped other military leaders understand that peace was not weakness. Peace was strength. Within 2 weeks, the 3 confederacies had signed an agreement. Not a treaty of surrender. Not a treaty where one side won and the others lost. A treaty where all sides won. Where cooperation created more power than conflict ever could. The Galactic Council watched in amazement. This was impossible. Humans had done what the most powerful beings in the universe could not do. Humans had brought peace where war seemed inevitable. Teo stood on the bridge of the Falcon and watched the treaty being signed on the view screen. Minsu joined him, and together they looked out at the space that had been burning with conflict just days before. "The Supreme Hunter knew we could do this," Minsu said. "The Supreme Hunter knew we would try," Teo said. "And that, I think, is what matters most." Far away, in the cosmic shadows where he always waited, the Supreme Hunter smiled. Or perhaps the ancient being's version of a smile. Either way, the hunter was pleased. The small Terrans had done well. Very well indeed. But the Supreme Hunter was patient. The hunter had waited for thousands of years. The hunter could wait longer. But the hunter already knew what would come next. The galaxy would never be the same. The message came in the form of a simple announcement made by the Supreme Hunter to all beings in the galaxy at the same time. Every species heard it in their own language. Every being, no matter where they were or what they were doing, understood the words perfectly. "You are no longer the small Terrans. You are kin." In the Galactic Assembly Chamber, the council members fell silent. To be called kin by the Supreme Hunter meant something profound. It meant that humanity was no longer seen as separate. It meant that humanity was recognized as part of the cosmic family. It meant that humanity was connected to something ancient and powerful and eternal. Teo was formally elevated to the position of permanent council, representative for Earth. When he took his seat among the other council members, the Vrin representative, the one who had laughed at him so long ago, bowed his crystal head in respect. The Vrin did not apologize. Apologies would have been too small. Instead, the Vrin simply recognized that something fundamental had changed. Minsu received an offer that shocked him. The leaders of the Galactic Concordat asked him to command a unified fleet. Not an Earth fleet. Not a human fleet. A fleet made of ships from dozens of different species, all working together. Minsu accepted immediately. His first act was to organize exploration missions to the outer reaches of known space, places where no one had dared to go for thousands of years. Nari, the Etherian Council member, became Earth's unofficial ambassador. She spent so much time on Earth that she learned to eat human food and enjoy human music. She told Teo that Etherians rarely felt the kind of joy that humans felt. It was something special, something worth protecting. Dr. Hei-Wan was granted access to the greatest archives in the galaxy. Libraries that had been sealed for 10,000 years were opened to her. She discovered that the supreme hunter species had once been like humans. They had eaten and slept and lived in bodies made of flesh and blood. But they had evolved. They had grown. They had transcended. The ancient archive suggested that perhaps one day, if humans were worthy, they might reach the same level of achievement. But that was in the future. For now, humans lived in the present, and the present was more exciting than anyone on Earth could have imagined. Other species began to study human culture. Scientists from 100 worlds wanted to understand what made humans so creative. Philosophers wanted to understand human nature. Military leaders wanted to learn human tactics and strategies. Artists wanted to understand how humans made their art and music. It was not mockery. It was respect. It was recognition. Junho, Earth's great strategist, became a teacher. He traveled to universities and military academies across the galaxy, teaching other species how to think the way humans thought, how to see solutions where others saw only problems, how to imagine futures that seemed impossible but could be achieved through creativity and persistence. Ji-Woo was brought into the highest circles of galactic science. Her ability to understand complex systems made her invaluable. She worked with scientists from the Vryn and the Solarians and dozens of other species. Together, they began to solve problems that had seemed unsolvable for millions of years. But the most important change happened quietly, without anyone announcing it or making a big ceremony. Humans started being invited to places they had never been invited before. To the private meetings of great powers, to the councils of ancient civilizations, to the sacred temples of species who believed in things humans did not understand, not because humans forced their way in, but because humans were now recognized as part of the cosmic family. When Teo walked through the Galactic Assembly Station, no one laughed at his height. No one mocked the shortness of human lives. Instead, other species made room for him. Other beings bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Other creatures recognized him as kin. One night, Teo sat in his office and looked at reports coming from all over the galaxy. Human scientists working with Vryn engineers had designed a new type of space travel that was faster than anything that had existed before. Human and Korthak military units had worked together to eliminate a threat in a distant sector, not fighting each other but fighting together, side by side. A cultural exchange program between Earth and the Etherian homeworld had created art so beautiful that beings wept when they saw it. This was what being kin meant. This was what the Supreme Hunter had been waiting for. Not dominance, not power over others, but the ability to work together, to grow together, to create together. Teo received a message from Minsu. The message was short and simple. Minsu was somewhere out beyond the edge of known space, exploring a region that had been empty for 1,000,000 years. He had found something that suggested that the Supreme Hunter species had left behind knowledge intentionally, knowledge meant to be found when the time was right. And that time, it seemed, was now. Teo smiled. This was how it was supposed to be. Humanity was not just surviving in the galaxy. Humanity was flourishing. Humanity was reaching for things that had seemed impossible just a short time ago. But there was one more thing. Teo stood before Earth, watching the blue world rotate beneath him. He had come alone to this spot, a small observatory where humans could watch their home planet from far away. The sight never got old. No matter how many times he saw Earth, it always moved something deep inside him. Minsu appeared in the observatory doorway. He had taken a fast ship from the outer regions just to see this moment. The two men stood together in silence, looking at Earth. They still underestimated us, Minsu said finally. The Council, the Vryn, the Korthak. They looked at us and saw only weakness. Yes, Teo said. They did not understand what it means to be hungry, what it means to be young as a species, what it means to have everything ahead of you instead of behind you. Do you think the Supreme Hunter knew? Minsu asked. Do you think the Hunter knew that we would grow so quickly? That we would change the galaxy so much? Teo considered this carefully. Then he said, I think the Supreme Hunter does not predict the future. The hunter sees into the nature of things. The hunter sees the potential that exists inside a being or a species. The Supreme Hunter looked at us and saw that potential. The hunter saw that we were predators with the hunger to grow. We were just waiting for someone to look at us and see what we could become. And now? Minsu asked. Now we keep going, Teo said. We keep reaching. We keep growing. We keep learning. We become worthy of the recognition the Supreme Hunter has given us, not just for us, but for everyone we meet. We show them that being kin means something. It means connection. It means responsibility. It means the potential for something great. The two friends stood together as Earth rotated beneath them. Somewhere out in the cosmic shadows, the Supreme Hunter moved through the darkness. The ancient being did not speak, but perhaps there was a sense of satisfaction. Perhaps there was the knowledge that the hunt had been worth it, that waiting had been worth it, that the recognition of humanity had been worth it. The galaxy had changed. The small Terrans were kin now, and the universe would never be quite the same. But this was not an ending. This was only the beginning of something greater. The beginning of a future where humanity stood among the stars not as conquerors or masters, but as partners, as kin, as beings worthy of standing alongside the greatest powers in the cosmos. And it had all started when one small human refused to accept mockery. When one human stood before mighty beings and refused to be diminished. When humanity showed the galaxy what it meant to be small and strong at the same time. The Supreme Hunter watched and waited, as the hunter always did. But now the hunter was waiting to see what humanity would do next. What incredible things would the Terrans achieve now that they had been recognized? The answer the Supreme Hunter knew would be worth waiting for.